So you've heard it said premarital sex is a sin. And you've heard this, and you've heard it from sermons and preachers, and you've tried to find it in the Bible yourself, tried to find that term, that phrase. You haven't been able to find it. I'm going to show you exactly why. Okay, so the Old Testament and the New Testament, I don't believe they should actually be separated like this, because in Jesus' teachings, in the teachings of Paul, in the different teachers, they were writing the letters that have become our Bible. They're just one, okay? But the problem was at the time when Jesus came along, all the people that thought they were super teachers, the Pharisees, they were just missing the point on so many things. So Jesus came along and just kind of expounded on these things. Gave examples of how they missed so much by creating more rules and more regulations. And basically it boils down to these two things: love God with all your heart, mind, and spirit, and love your neighbor as you love yourself. All right, so in those things will cover a multitude of all the other sins. If you adhere to those two commandments, then everything else is covered. It'll automatically be covered by that love for God and love for your neighbors. So, all right, so let's jump into premarital sex. Now, I'm going to make a delineation here because this is a different study. What we're not talking about is sexual immorality and fornication. Those in the Greek and in the Hebrew are actually something entirely different, and I have a study for those. But let's stay focused here on premarital sex. So in the Old Testament, those 613 laws that were handed down through Moses from God spell out for us what is sin and what is not sin. Okay? What is right and what is wrong. And typically there is a penalty of death. It requires blood for something that is a sin. So if you go to Leviticus 18, that's going to give you all the list of the sexual sins. There are not lists of sexual sins in the New Testament. The New Testament is commenting on the laws of Moses, the laws from Moses, the 613. So Leviticus 18, it's a short read. It's like one page. Leviticus 20, those are the sexual sins. The one I'm going to talk about right now is from Deuteronomy 22. And it's talking about virginity. It's talking about rape and different things, and punishments and compensations. You might sound like it's all the same thing, but let's just read through it. And then as you look at the other study, you'll find this out as well. All right, so here are some examples of situations that were given here. This is in Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 13. If any man takes a wife and goes into her and detests her and charges her with shameful conduct, meaning she's been playing around, she's lost her virginity, and brings a bad name on her and says, I took this woman, and when I came to her, I found she was not a virgin. Then the father and the mother of the young woman shall take and bring out the evidence of the young woman's virginity to the elders of the city at the gate. And the young woman's father shall say to the elders, I gave my daughter to this man as a wife, and he detests her. Now he has the charges with her of shameful conduct, saying, I found your daughter was not a virgin, and yet these are the evidences of my daughter's virginity, and they shall spread the cloth before the elders of the city. Then the elders of the city shall take that man and punish him. They shall fine him 100 shekels of silver and give them to the father of the young woman, because he has brought a bad name on a virgin of Israel. And she shall be his wife. He cannot divorce her all of his days. So right now, what we're seeing is the context of a virgin, a woman that's never had sex, lives with her father. That's the framework of how God sees things, as how they're supposed to be. And there's honor there as well. There's honor for a woman to remain as a virgin and not play around, not do things like idolatry inside of his house. All right, so let's move on to the flip side of that. But if the thing is true and the evidences of virginity are not found for the young woman, then they shall bring out the young woman to the door of her father's house, not the city, and the men of the city shall stone her to death with stones, because she has done a disgraceful thing in Israel to play the harlot of her father's house. So you shall put away the evil from among you. All right, so don't be a harlot in your father's house. That's what it's saying. Remain a virgin. Okay? So, let's go on. Here's another example. If a man is found lying with a woman married to a husband, then both of them shall die, that man that lay with the woman and the woman, so that you shall put away the evil from Israel. Now, this is talking about adultery. Adultery is a man having sex with a married woman. That's the definition. Nothing else you've been told, and I've got studies on that. I'll go and show you exactly in the Greek how so many things have been watered down and misleading in the translations. You know, Jesus said, beware of the scribes. Those are the people that write things down. Beware of them. And the Pharisees, the people in religious costumes that add all the rules on top of the 613 laws given by God through Moses. All right? So that was adultery. Let's move on to another example here. If a young woman who is a virgin, again, emphasis on a virgin, is betrothed to a husband, meaning she's engaged to get married to a man, and a man finds her in the city and lies with her, a man finds her, not the man she's betrothed to, then you shall bring them both out to the gate of the city, and you shall stone them to death with stones. The young woman, because she did not cry out in the city, meaning she didn't scream for all the people around her to hear it. So this would be a falsehood if she doesn't scream out. All right, and the man, because he humbled his neighbor's wife, humbled means he basically had sex with her. So you shall put away the evil from among you. Now, a side note here again, this is talking in the context of Israel. God took Israel as a microcosm of humanity. And the people were to live under the laws of Moses as an example to everybody else to look at and to learn from. Okay, that's what we're talking about in Israel. Okay, that's the purpose. God chose, you've heard the chosen people, the Jews. God chose a group of people to work with as an example for the rest of the world to learn by. All right, let's go on to another example here of premarital sex. But if a man finds a betrothed and engaged young woman in the countryside, she's out in the field, she's out picking wheat somewhere, she's picking berries off a tree or a bush somewhere. If a young woman is in the countryside and the man forces her and lies with her, then only the man who lied with her shall die. Okay? But you shall do nothing to the young woman. There is the young woman no sin deserving of death. Or there's nothing in the young woman not deserving of death. For just as when a man rises against his neighbor to kill him, even so it is in this matter. Okay? She's innocent. For he found her in the countryside, and the betrothed young woman cried out. The engaged woman cried out and screamed, but there was no one to save her. Okay, so last situation here. Again, in the context of being in the city, people and neighbors know who you are. Word gets around in close quarters very easily. Gossips were gossips, and everybody pretty much knew who everybody was. So let's go on to the last example here. If a man finds a young woman who is a virgin, who is not betrothed, not engaged, and he seizes her and lies with her, and they are found out, meaning looking at both of them, then the man who lied with her shall give to the young woman's father 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife because he humbled her. He shall not be permitted to divorce her all of her days. Okay, so this context is the choice of the two of them having sex out in the countryside. Now, what is the framing here again? This is a virgin living in her father's house. There's honor there. Why is virginity so important? Okay, now, men are not virgins. Despite all the stupidity taught in the church and from the preachers that, men are virgins too, boys are virgins too. No, they're not. God did not give them a physical barrier like a switch that says this woman's a virgin, this woman's a red flag that goes up. that says this woman is no longer a virgin, okay? God gave women virginity because the first child that comes out of the womb is the sacred one. That's why you remember the story of Pharaoh killing all the firstborn. They're sacred. The firstborn are sacred out of the womb. Okay, and it's that way for everything in God's nature. Even when you grow something the first time, you come into a land and you start to grow something, the first fruits of your labor are sacred. The first fruits. Okay, the same thing as you've heard with tithing. The first fruits are the first things that grew out of the ground and that you gave to God. You gave them to the Levitical priests, actually, for them. So this is why virginity is so important. It's emphasized. Now you've heard this part. This is Deuteronomy 22, okay? And we're starting in verse 13 through 28. Go into Leviticus 18, go into Leviticus 20, all the lists of the sexual sins. There's no lists of sexual sins in the New Testament. They're all referencing the laws given to Moses, the 613 sins, the laws, what are sins. They're all listed right there. They're in a page. You can read them in 5 minutes, okay? I want you to comment below. Tell me what you see is missing from the 613 laws given by God. Is there anything that you've been taught that you don't see there? I want you to write it in the comments below, okay? And please subscribe to this as well. Now, I covered a lot of things here, and I've got things that I said, I'll have other videos for the definition exactly from the Greek and from the Hebrew of what fornication is. It's not what you've been taught. Okay, what sexual immorality is. It's not what you've been taught. Get to the exact meaning. Remember, Jesus said, beware of the scribes, the people that write things down, the people that translate. Beware of them. Watch out for them, okay? Along with the Pharisees, the people in the religious costumes that are adding more rules and more regulations. And lastly, remember that we're warned to beware of the doctrines of demons that are introduced into the church. Beware of traditions of men. Now, if they're warning about this in the first century with all the writers of the New Testament there walking around, and they're already warning people there to watch out for these false teachings, laying guilt upon people, false counterfeit guilt. Imagine how much time the devil has had for 2,000 years to rework things, retranscribe things, introduce falsehoods and false teachings into the church. Imagine how much time he's had to work with. Imagine how he knows the scripture better than you and I, and can twist it in any kind of different ways using ministers and preachers and priests that have good intentions. And remember, the road to destruction is paved with good intentions. Remember that good intentions don't equal accuracy. So you can go online, you can use Strong's Concordance, you can use an interlinear Bible and get to the basic root word meanings of these as well. Because I'll tell you for a fact, the Bible from the Hebrew and the Greek cannot be translated accurately unless they add a lot of words. And Bible translators don't want to add words. For instance, there's 6 different words for love in the Bible. We've got one word, love. Okay, so how much is lost in the translation there for that? So again, please subscribe. You'll see links to the other videos there, or you can just see it in the playlist. Please put the comments below. What's missing? Thanks for listening.